I've played Pokémon Legends Z-A for just about 12 hours, and in that time learned quite a few things that the game doesn't always tell you up front, that I think you all should know before starting your own journey. So make sure to subscribe if you haven't yet for plenty more Legends Z-A videos coming up, and let's get started with the things I wish I knew when starting out. Before you even set foot in Lumiose, you'll first have to choose a language, which cannot be changed later by the way. Then of course you'll get to pick your appearance. But what the game doesn't tell you is that you're also choosing your rival here, Tawny for the guys and Urbane for the gals. About an hour or two into the game, you'll unlock full customization, including hairstyles once you found a salon. And none of the options are gender locked, so you can basically make yourself look like the opposite character, letting you have the same gender rival if you wanted to. However, there are some things you won't be able to change, mainly your body type. And while both character models can wear any outfit in the game, there are some small differences in how the clothes fit. I'll show a side by side so you can see what I mean. Finally, you should know that some NPCs will occasionally refer to you as he or she based on which appearance you picked, so it's worth taking a moment to choose the one you're most comfortable with. Now, just in these few clips, you've probably noticed just how many options there are to customizing, but they certainly don't come cheap. So my first real tip for Legends Z-A is to pick up absolutely everything you see. Every single sparkly little item on the ground can either be used, traded, or sold, and you're definitely going to need the cash early on, especially for buying more drip. And it took me a while to realize, but you don't actually have to press A to pick up the smaller glowing items, as just walking or running over them will automatically put them in your bag. But before you start picking up anything, you'll first have to pick up your starter. And in this game, trainers get the choice between Chikorita, Totodile, and Tepig. There's really no wrong or weakest choice, but without spoiling too much, I will say all three of them get a special surprise for their final forms. But there's actually a secret fourth starter in Legends Z-A. See that little guy in the back? That's right, you can actually choose Pancham. Though what happens if you do, I'll let you guys discover for yourselves. And as for which starter I'm going with, you'll have to stay tuned for my Let's Play starting later today. But at least in this guide save file, I went with Tepig. After which, we're immediately thrust into the first battle. Now, unless you've been living under a rock, you probably know that for the first time in a mainline Pokemon game, Legends Z-A features real-time battles instead of turn-based. I've broken down the new battle system plenty of times in my previous videos, so I'll just go over it very briefly. Pokemon still learn up to 4 moves at a time, but instead of PP, moves now have cooldowns, which means after using one, you won't be able to use it again until the bar refills. But in order to use any move, you'll first need to have a target, which you can lock onto with ZL, then press the corresponding button to use that attack. While waiting for your moves to recharge though, I found that unlocking from the enemy makes your Pokemon come closer to you, and staying farther away from the enemy makes it a lot easier to dodge their attacks. And once you have more than one Pokemon, you can also switch between them, and if you time it properly, this will actually let you dodge attacks too. But when they're first sent out, Pokemon have this sort of summoning animation, during which they're vulnerable to getting attacked. So you'll have to be careful about timing your switches correctly, because switching at the wrong time means you'll essentially take a free hit from the enemy. In general, the new battle system definitely takes some getting used to at first. For me personally, it was around the 2-hour mark that I really started getting it and being so excited whenever my Pokemon would learn a new move to see how it works in the real-time system. We'll dive a little deeper into the new moves in just a little bit. But first I wanted to mention that battles are slightly different depending on whether you're fighting a wild Pokemon or a trainer. Mainly because a lot of the wild ones will straight up ignore your Pokemon and try to attack you directly. More importantly, there's a new mechanic in this game when it comes to catching. You can of course sneak around and try to catch Pokemon without battling them at all, but there's now a little indicator that'll tell you how likely you are to succeed in catching it. A regular white arrow means it's probably gonna break out of the ball. 2 arrows marked in yellow means it's still pretty unlikely to stay in. 3 arrows I found to be about a 50-50 chance, and 4 arrows marked in green means it's very likely to stay in the bag. Ball. And finally, there's the X accompanied by anger, which means you've pissed that Pokemon off and won't be able to catch it anymore, until it's calmed down after a while, or you knock it out. And this is where the actual new mechanic I wanted to talk about comes in, as Z-A gives you a sort of last chance to catch a Pokemon even after you've reduced its HP to 0. If you fail to catch it in this stun state, or wait too long without doing anything though, the Pokemon will disappear forever, so only use this as a last resort if you really want to catch something. But if you're just trying to rack up experience quick, then the best thing to do is fight and knock out Pokemon every time, then catch them. because you'll actually get experience both for defeating it and for catching it after, which I definitely found to be the easiest and fastest way of leveling up in the early to mid game. On that note, I highly recommend catching everything you fight because, similar to Legends Arceus, you'll get rewards for catching and completing certain Pokedex objectives. One of the early rewards you get for this is the TM for Protect, arguably the most useful move in the whole game. When timed properly, it'll of course fully protect you from damage and even status moves, which can be very crucial when you're waiting for your other moves' cooldowns. I think I had Protect on almost every one of my Pokemon during the early game, and it ended up saving my ass many times, so definitely recommend it. Other than TMs, your Pokemon will also get ideas for new moves all the time, but the game won't ask if you want to learn it when they do, so my next tip would be to periodically check whether they've learned new moves, cause I definitely was not paying attention when they did. Like I mentioned, you get Protect as a reward for leveling up your Pokedex, which happens naturally as you catch Pokemon, win battles. And while there are specific objectives you can do, I've rarely paid attention to them. Really just catching everything I knocked out. Ended up completing many of these rewards, which of course made the Pokedex level up quicker. So again, any wild Pokemon you fight and knock out, might as well catch too. The game even lets you release multiple Pokemon at once, so you can always get rid of the bulk later. But besides the awesome TMs, the final reward you get for leveling up the Pokedex is one I'm sure many trainers will want to get. So just trust me when I say, catch everything. But when it comes to catching and specifically shiny hunting, there's one major change in ZA that I think a lot of people are not going to be fans of. You can no longer turn off autosave. Thankfully, the game doesn't actually autosave that often, mainly just after major story cutscenes, and more importantly, whenever you fast travel. But you can still manually save the game too, by simply pressing the R button in the main menu. And it works pretty much exactly like it did in the last few games, meaning if you save right in front of a rare Pokemon, like a shiny, as long as you don't fast travel away or somehow trigger a story cutscene, resetting the game will put you back in that exact spot with the exact Pokemon still right in front of you. You can't save while in battle though, so if you do happen to hear a shiny, I recommend saving immediately because if it's aggressive and starts a battle with you, then you won't be able to save until you de-aggro it, which isn't always possible depending on where you encounter it. That said, you probably noticed the shiny sparkle is back. And it's actually even better than it was in Legends Arceus because you'll not only hear it when the Pokemon first spawns, but there's also a faint glimmer sound that persists whenever you're near a shiny, like in Let's Go. So again, if you happen to hear a shiny, save the game immediately and don't fast travel, because if it's aggressive, you might not be able to save after. Actually, I was reviewing the footage and the game also seems to save every time you catch a Pokemon, which kinda sucks because there's a few gift Pokemon you only get through side quests, and as soon as you get them, the game saves, so you can't reset for a better nature or something like that. By the way, whenever you do manual save, it'll also tell you the current level cap, which I found is quite generous in ZA, even from the start of the game, and increases every time you rank up in the ZA Royale. But even using Pokemon above that level cap isn't nearly as bad as it was in past games. One, because I found they don't actually disobey as often, though maybe I just got lucky with that. But two, because if they do disobey, you have 3 other moves you can try immediately after with almost no punishment, so it's bound to obey at least one of the 4 attacks. But what if you just absolutely suck at catching Pokemon? Well, luckily they've added another handy-dandy feature, or rather NPC, that collects all the Pokeballs you happen to miss, and will give them back to you completely for free. You can find this so-called ball collector outside every Pokemon Center, and by simply talking to him, you'll get your missed Pokeballs back. Do note this only applies to balls you missed hitting the Pokemon with, not the ones you hit but then failed to catch him with. I think in the lore those Pokeballs break. But if you ever happen to accidentally press the Pokeball throwing button, you can reclaim those at any Pokemon Center, which I imagine is why they did it, because I've done that many times on accident. And on the topic of balls, as soon as you're able to freely roam Lumiose, you can stop by a shop called the Pokeball Boutique, where you can buy a variety of way more useful types of Pokeballs than what the Pokemon Center offers. Most of them work as you'd expect from previous games, but a huge change comes to Quick Balls. Since there's no longer turns, these will actually work better when thrown before being spotted or starting a battle with a Pokemon. On the flip side, Timer Balls now count actions instead of turns, though I haven't tested if they also work after a Pokemon's been stunned. And finally, Dusk Balls now work best only at night, no longer in dark places like caves, because there are no caves. Now you might have noticed the ball collector has a special yellow text box above him. And any NPC you see with a yellow text box means they actually have something to give you. Whether it's an item, a TM, the rewards vary vastly, but it's a free item, so be sure to always talk to NPCs with yellow text above them. As you're out exploring the streets of Lumiose, you might happen upon some obstacles you can target but may not be able to break, at least in the beginning. But pretty early on you'll get access to Rock Smash, which, as the name implies, will let you clear the many boulders around the city. Breaking these isn't limited to just Rock Smash though, as I found any fighting type move works. You'll find other similar obstacles like these thorns that can be burned down using fire type moves, or piles of sludge that can be washed away with water type attacks. There's also some slightly rarer ones like these spider webs I found dangling between two buildings, which I think you have to hit with a ranged attack or a Pokemon that can fly. And finally, there's the Mega Crystals, which you'll see all over the city, and any Pokemon can break these with any sort of damaging move. It's kind of annoying, but I definitely recommend breaking as many of these as you have the patience for, because you can of course trade these for Mega Stones a bit later in the game. And if you want every Mega Stone, you're going to need a lot of Mega Shards. Clearing any of these obstacles will also give the Pokemon that did it a little bit of experience, which early on can be quite helpful for new team members to catch up. Now, when it comes to exploring Lumiose, I have a suggestion that may be a bit controversial, because it's actually to not explore that much, at least at the very beginning of the game, because you'll very often run into invisible walls, or the NPC you're following will tell you to turn around, and that can get annoying real quick. If you don't mind the road bumps, then you can find some pretty cool stuff by exploring, but it's not like you'd miss out on anything by waiting until later. So I'd actually recommend waiting until you've been to the Looker Bureau when you first unlock side missions. Depending on how fast you mash through the dialogue, you might be able to get here faster, but for me it was about 2 to 3 hours in. Because after that, pretty much the entirety of Lumiose City is open for you to explore with almost no restrictions. I say almost because there are of course a few exceptions. Like I mentioned at the beginning, I've played just a little over 12 hours and have yet to unlock the Roto Glide we saw in many of the trailers. And this feature actually seems to be crucial to reaching some areas with rare Pokemon or collectibles, but you can still explore most of Lumiose without it, including many of the scaffoldings you'll likely run into as you're wandering the streets. They're kind of hard to ignore actually with how much they stick out from the otherwise pretty bland look of the city. But anytime you run into these, I definitely recommend at least trying to climb them, because if you can manage to reach the top, they have perhaps the best collectible in the game so far. Remember that pink glowing item I spotted in some of the demo footage? Turns out these are actually a new type of collectible you can only find by climbing these scaffoldings or sometimes up on the rooftops near them. And these colorful screws are 1000% worth collecting whenever you can, because you can trade these screws in for charms at this construction company you can find pretty early on in the game. I kind of struggled to find this NPC again later on, so if you can, I definitely recommend going into the building next to him, as that'll unlock the fast travel point so you can easily return here. The charms themselves have a variety of effects, from increasing the experience you gain to letting your trainer take more hits in battle. But for the early parts of the game, I definitely recommend getting the experience charm first, as more experience means your Pokemon will get stronger faster. Then when you start struggling to catch stuff, I got the catching charm up to level 3, and it made even some of the alphas way easier to catch. But if you find yourself dying a lot as the trainer, then the stamina increasing charm would definitely be best for you. But you won't be able to get them all from the beginning, because a lot of these scaffoldings do require the Roto Glide to fully explore, which kinda sucks because there's no way to mark which ones you've collected so far. Sometimes you can get one screw, but not the other. So I'll definitely be making a guide on all the screw locations way later, because it's gonna take me a while to find them all, but in the early parts of the game, I do recommend at least trying to climb whenever you see one, because the charm bonuses are pretty good. Now, the final tip I have for you guys involves the game's day and night cycle. As you probably know, the core gameplay loop of ZA is catching Pokemon during the day and fighting in the ZA Royale at night, but you're not limited to either or. In fact, you can actually skip the time of day if you want by resting at your bed in Hotel Z. Or a bit later into the game, you'll be able to use any of the benches found throughout Lumiose. Kind of funny that they let you sleep on the benches, considering they literally put the things to prevent people from sleeping on them. But anyway, changing from night to day can be very useful whenever you're ready to do the ZA Royale but don't want to wait until night, or if there's a Pokemon found at a specific time of day, like a lot of ghost Pokemon that only seem to spawn at night. There is a bit of an annoying part to the day and night cycle though, as if you find yourself in the middle of a fight when the time changes, whatever Pokemon you were fighting will completely reset. So I'm not sure if this means you could potentially lose out on a shiny. The game does at least give you a fair warning when time is going to change, and actually the minimap will start flashing to let you know like, hey, it's about to turn day or night. So if you see that message pop up, try not to get in any important battles right before you know the time of day is about to change. And that's finally gonna do it. Hopefully with these tips, you'll be a little more prepared to take on the streets of Lumiose. But what if you happen to not like the changes in this game, or just really hate the city itself? Well, you can just turn around and leave. That's right, you can actually go back to the train station through which you arrive and straight up leave Lumiose behind. The game will ask you multiple times if you're absolutely sure, but eventually let you go. So go ahead and try it. I won't spoil what happens. Good luck out there, trainers, and I hope to see you soon as I start my own adventure on the Switch 2, with episode 1 of Let's Play Legends Z-A coming out later today if you're watching this on the day it releases. And I'll also be live streaming my playthrough starting a bit later in the day, so be sure to subscribe if you haven't yet to stay tuned, and don't forget to leave a like if you enjoyed.